welcome back to Wicked Art. It's Wicked here, and we're going to continue with our little digital artistic journey. Now, if you were here with me on the last video, we brought up this blending brush. So again, that's down in the artistic tab. So if you just scroll down with your brushes and come down to the artistic tab and just grab and hold and just drag it up, that way it's available to you right here. Okay, so we're going to get into drawing and painting a portrait. Alright, so I'm going to hold down the space bar and I'm going to zoom out. You can see I got all this space here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my paintbrush and switch to black. I'm going to have my symmetry turned on right here by clicking the symmetry tool. And I'm going to shrink my brush down. Let's see, that's about a good size. So we're doing 0.7. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and this is going to show you how easy it is to draw from the front this way with the symmetry tool. So anytime you're drawing a person from the front, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch out the shapes. Okay, so I'm going to have this arching shape. So see how it draws the same thing on the other side? That's what we want to go for here, okay? And now I'm going to sketch another shape right in here for the bottom part of my eye. And we can get another line in here for the underside. We're not going to add too much detail right now. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do, we're going to kind of make this kind of like a dwarf or just fantasy creature. So we're going to give them a really big nose. Okay, so what I want to do first is let's go ahead and come over to this layer, right? And let's just call this sketch, so it'll help us keep track of what's what. Okay, and now I'm going to come over here and finish with my nose. Let's arch that down and sketch that right in there. Okay, let's take an eraser. Let's bring it down a little more. Alright, so we're going to come down here and we're really going to stretch it this way. Okay, let's remember, Control Z or Command Z is how you go backwards. Okay, so I'm going to arch that. Really want to try to get the nostril right here. Okay, so kind of like that. Maybe bring that out just a little bit more. Alright, now I'm going to come off of here. Give him a little bit of his face there. Okay, and come up here to the top. We're not going to go really for an eyebrow too much right now. So we get that shape in there. Be a little bit more of an elderly dwarf. So we're going to bring that out and come in with it. Okay. I'm going to come down with my line work. Just really into the cheek here. Come down underneath and curve in like that. Okay. And then right off of here, I'm just going to add in another shape and kind of bring this in right here, and we can start stretching this down. Okay, so we have that there. So now I can come in here and get a mouth. Alright, a little bit top lip here. Nothing too thick. Just try to keep it thin. Okay, I'm going to hold the space bar and shift myself up just a little bit. And we can kind of curve out and bring the lips back here. Okay, now watch. See how this is getting too big, right? So I can come down here, hit my select tool, and go to the move, and hold shift, or I can shrink it down. Okay, that way I have more space. But the tricky part is you got to make sure when you get that symmetry tool that you're still in the center. So a good way to test that is to go back over your lines and make sure it comes out the same spot. Okay, so now that we're good, I'm gonna kind of bring this around, curve that in there. Okay, and we're gonna take this here and kind of draw on ourselves a little bit of a beard in here. Okay, so just gonna get some shape going. Doesn't have to be perfect. Alright. Now I'm gonna come off the side of the head here. Okay. And we're gonna come up to the top. Just like that. Okay. And then, and again, you're gonna have to forgive my voice. I was sick this weekend, so that's kind of a little stuffy sound. That's why. All right, and then let's just get some flow of his hair off the side. So we'll leave him like that, and then bring up a little bit here. Let's do this. I'm going to shift up just a little. Okay, and then I'm going to take my eraser. I'm going to bring that back. And let's make sure we're on our paintbrush. Okay, and then I can draw on a few old man lines here. Alright, so that's our sketch layer, right? So now I'm going to hit this plus button and make a new layer. Okay, I'm going to hold down in the center, grab. I'm going to call this final lines. Alright, come back down here to your sketch layer and click on it, make sure it's selected. Take the opacity down, about 32 is fine. Now we're going to take our paintbrush and I'm going to go up to about a 1. Okay, now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to redraw nice solid lines over the top of my work. So after you've sketched something out, you can use this as a time to refine and add details in there, right? So I can come in here and add my line there and then get a few extra just so that it looks better, right? And get more of the brow shape in here, right? So I can kind of bring a line in, round out, bring it up. Okay, and the symmetry tool is keeping everything even and saving me some time. So again, I can draw out and come up, make some wrinkles there. Okay, I can take this here. We can kind of come off the edge here, really work that in. Okay, so essentially what we have here is an older dwarf So we're going to have a lot more shape in there. Okay, so same thing here on the nose. I can now take this area and we can make a few more of these creases that come in and round out and curve that in. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of my line work here and add to that. Okay, and all this is doing is giving us a more defined look. Okay, so I'm just kind of rounding out and fixing things. Alright, so like right in here, we could add another wrinkle in, right? And then kind of come from down here up into that cheek. And we know we have our hair that's coming in. Right, so I can use that to help shape my beard. Okay, I can come over here and connect. Okay, now I can come into the mouth. So I'm going to make a slight adjustment and not go back as far. I'll probably stop right here. I am going to thicken that line up just a little. Okay, then I'm going to make my lip shape come down and do the same thing right here. Alright, now I can come up towards my eye here. Okay, I really want to kind of close that down, so I'm going to take my eraser, I'm going to use my bracket keys, shrink that down, and let's round it a little bit shorter right here. Okay, that way I can squeeze in a couple more of these wrinkles. Okay, and then up here on the top of my head, we can bring that up just a little. Alright, and I am just adding in some little details to kind of help. Alright, I can come back down here where my beard is and add in a few more. Just kind of really bringing out the beard. So as you can see, I'm not 100% using all my lines. I'm kind of going over them a little bit. Okay, I'll take my hair this way. Right. Then I have the hair on top of my head. And go back, I kind of shook my hand a little bit. Alright, so we're just going to bring that around and connect that there. Then I can use the edge of my head, give it a little bit of a curve so it looks like it's actually a part of the head here. So with this, you want to kind of come down more to a peak there. Okay, so now that I have that, right, I have everything set up with my face, I can now get rid of the sketch layer. So I can click, make sure you click on the sketch layer, hold in the middle, and delete. Okay, so now I have myself a nice set of lines here. Next thing I want to do is add a layer, and I'm going to drag it down below by grabbing this little arrow. Okay, we're going to call this our base. Okay, so the reason why we put it below is I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to switch this to multiply, and what that'll do is allow those lines to really show up. Okay, I'm going to switch over here to a middle gray. Right, I'm going to take my paintbrush And if you notice, I'm not turning off the symmetry tool, because look, it'll also paint on the same side, so it still saves you some time. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paint in everything. Now if you notice, see how I went outside the lines? Watch this. Hit Command Z and go back. Okay. If you look at all of these things here, right? You got merge, lock layer, background. There's no real way to mask that off, right? So if I take, let me switch back to black. If I take my pencil, shrink it back down to a 0.7 or 1, sorry. Okay, I'm going to close it off and make sure everything is touching a line at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to take my select tool right here and pick the magic wand, and I'm going to click, and if you can tell, it picks the outside of it, right? Now watch this. If I hit select inverse, oops, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Right here, this one that's a square, you invert it and it'll select down, right? So now move back down here to the bottom, go back to your gray, your middle gray right here. Go ahead and pick your brush tool, and we can turn the symmetry back on and increase the brush size, and watch, it'll fill in the whole thing and not go outside the lines at all. Okay, so now I have that entire area covered in gray. Now we don't want to do that. I just moved things, so be careful. So sometimes if you don't want that to happen, if you have to move it up, that's fine. Okay, so now we have our gray in there. I'm going to come down here about halfway, and we're going to work in our darker colors. Alright, so this is where studying light and things like that are going to come in handy. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start brushing in some of these darker areas. That would be on the face, my darkest points, right? So just different ways that the light's going to hit it is where I'm going to attach. So if you're following along with me, that's fine. But I say when you try this on your own and do the homework, it is 100% okay if you pull up a reference and try to practice shadow lights on that. Okay, so like here, even I would want to go around the nose, right? Stay close. These really dark areas here. Okay, so as you can see, it's taking care of it on both sides, which is good. Alright, now some other places you want to hit up, these areas outside the head where it's standing out more from the hair with the overlay. Okay, and we can go ahead just down here. Let's just fill in the whole thing. Alright, some other spots we could hit up right here under the lip. Okay, we can also do right along the edge of the beard here. Okay, so you can see how it's kind of bringing out the things that we want. I'm just going to kind of come out from the eye a little bit there. Okay, now up here on the head, we're not going to have too much. Maybe a slight bit on the bottom right here, but most of that is getting our sunlight anyway. Okay, so that's that darker tone. So if I was to switch off the eyeball where my lines are, you can see I still kind of retaining the shape of my face. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is we're going to slide up a little bit more. Okay, so not quite back at the corner. Okay, and we're just going to build it out from there, right? So some of these areas are going to get some highlights, some of them not, but we're just going to build out from there. Just paint that in. And what that'll do is help build up some definition in the face. And give it some more depth. Okay, so we really just want to hit these layers that are, so it's like our light sources coming in, this way over here. So we really want to make sure we're hitting up those bottom areas that are catching those, lack of a better term, those rays. Alright, so down in here, we're not going to see too much. So for now, we'll have that, and then we're going to leave that outside area, but come back close to the nose right in here. Okay. Same thing with our nose here. It's very rounded, so towards the edge, I'll hit it up, right? And as I come further down where it rounds, we're actually going to get it to connect here. Okay. And then kind of come back down towards these crevices again, right? And then I can stay close right here as well. Maybe add in a slight shadow right here just to give it some more depth. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is start building up my brow, because that is definitely a turn in shape right here. So we're just building that up. Remember, pause the video if you need to. Don't fall behind and try to catch up. Just take as much time as you need with it. Okay, now some of these wrinkles here, I can go over the top. Right, same thing with down here in the eye lobe. I can kind of fill in just a little here. Alright, now with the hair, we're going to kind of blend that back. Again, this is not going to be a full, like, super duper detailed portrait. It's going to be a little bit more on the stylized side. Okay, so we're going to fill that in. And then we're going to hit up our hair. Okay. Let's stick close to this edge down here. Alright, so you can see how it's already bringing our character, right? So if I turn that off, this is what we started with. This is where we're at. It's already adding that much detail to it. Alright, so I'm going to bring this down. Stay close to my edge here. And pull that back. And we're going to come down this way and get that side in as well. Alright, now a few more spots. I want to kind of hit up lips. See how I'm staying back from the line. I'm leaving a little bit of that lightness up in there. And then the same with this bottom. I'm going to stay close here. As I get down to this edge, I'm not going to touch it. Leave that open. Okay, and then down in here we can add some shape to it. So like I can get close to my old line here. Okay, and then as I curve up, again, I'm not using any fancy brush, I'm just using a basic paintbrush on this. Okay, so I have that in there now, right? I also want to add a little bit of shadow inside the eye here. Okay, and then I want to hit, of course, certain areas of the beard, at least for this top area. You don't want it to be too much because it's closer out to the light. Okay, but when I get down to this bottom area, I can add a little bit more in there. Okay, so again, we're not going to go for absolute perfection on this one. Alright, we're just learning the basics of planning out the shading and how to blend it, which we will get to in a moment. Okay, now I want to bring that down. Let's get a little bit closer here. Smooth that, and then we can kind of add in. So I'm just vibrating up and down to just give a sense of some hair. Okay, maybe come here and do a couple of them here. Alright, now next thing I want to do is I want to go too bright, right? So this was my midtone. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add in some of my highlights, those really big highlighted areas, right? So I'm going to fill these in. Now see how bright that is, right? We don't want to push it any brighter than that. Okay, so I'm just coming to specific areas where my highlights are going to stick out. These are places where you get that shine on the face. So like here in the lips, that's why we left that open. A little bit down in here. Right, I'm going to get a small highlight section down here. We also have probably this area right here. Get a little bit. Okay. Certain aspects of the hair, we could get the outside of it. So this is more of a comic book style, if you will. Yeah, I really gotta stop grabbing that circle before I mess this whole picture up. I guess we'll leave that alone. I'll do that at the end. Okay, so just come in and add a few little highlights. Okay, so as you can see, a lot of this is looking very reflective and rough, but we're going to go in and we're going to fix that. Okay, we just need to make sure that we hit our highlighted areas first before we start blending. Okay, maybe get a little bit of a shine in the eye there. Hit another one over here, a little bit on the cheek. Okay, maybe hit the edge here. Alright, so we have a basic foundation laid out, right? So this is where our blending tool is going to come in. So So you want to select that blending tool. Okay, and I'm going to go over these areas. What that'll do is that'll blend these colors in to give it a little bit more of a smooth transition. Okay, now I don't want to go too crazy, because it's okay to have some hard edge to those shading. Okay, so as you can tell, I'm just going around and blending it together. Alright, so I'm going to hit up those highlights. Again, leaving the symmetry tool on allows me to save some time. Okay, so I'm just really just going around and hitting up those edges and smoothing it out. And then we're going to get to the cool part, which is how by starting off black and white like this, when it comes to laying the foundations of the colors, it's a little much easier. So again, just continue to go around and just really blend in those highlights. Take your time. Don't rush your artwork. Again, if you need to pause the video, you can. So you can stay caught up with me. Now, one thing I am noticing, I'm going to go back to my paintbrush real quick. I want to put a slight highlight around the lid right here. Okay, I'm going to also put a slight highlight here. So I might need to shrink my brush size down. And one more right here. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my blending brush. Go over those. And just continue working around the face. Like I said, when you practice on enough reference images, just look up, make it easier on yourself. Just look up black and white photos of, celebrities, models. It doesn't matter. It's completely up to you. And you can do the same thing for animals too. Like if you want to learn, if you like to draw animals and you want to start painting those. Okay. So for right now, like I said, this is a basic, no fancy brushes. Just gotta learn how to shade and blend. Okay, I kind of lightly go around that lip and blend those in. Just gotta be careful with the highlights so that you don't overtake some of your darker shadows. Just finish smoothing out this beard. Okay. So, now that we have that in there and established, okay, what we can do next is we can add another layer. And I'm going to drag it in the middle, come over. I'm going to call this color. Okay. Now you got two options. You can do an overlay or you can do a multiply. Multiply will make it a little bit darker. I'm going to go with an overlay on this. Okay, I'm going to come over here and get me about a pinkish color in here. So if you look, I'm kind of in the middle with the orange and the red. I'm just kind of coming around. Alright, now watch what happens. When I start painting, the shadows are still there, right? So I am able to give my character skin without having to paint and reshadow all that skin. Right? I can just paint that in. It goes right over the top and overlays. Right? Like that. Now, here's what it would look like if I chose multiply. See how it's a little darker? It just depends the aesthetic you're going for. So like if this was a more darker lidded room, we could keep it like that. Or just doing a screen and it's super bright. An overlay to just kind of overlay over the top of the colors. Alright. Now, I am going to come in here. I'm going to pick white and I'm just going to overlay white over the eyes. Actually, you know what? Let's make it seem more mystical. Let's go with like this light blue area. You can pick whatever you want for yours, but I want to go and give them some blue eyes like that. Okay. Now, for brown, we know that yellow and orange make some brown, right? Red and orange, I mean. So I can come in between here, and I can drag around, finding me a brown color, right? Let's go a little darker. I'm just going to bring it down some. Give him some brown hair. See how it just shades everything in for you, right? So you've already taken the time to do the black and white rendering. And we'll get into a more detailed way to do things in another video. But for now, it's as far as we're pushing this one. Okay, let's finish that hair up here at the top. Right? So, a couple things I can do. I can come back down to my shadow layer and take that blending tool, and I can really blend in those highlights in the beard, just so it doesn't stick out as much. Basically just knocking them down a notch. Alright. And then the next thing I can do is I can stay in this layer and come down to this black, right? And go almost black, just stop there. And then I can take my airbrush, right? Watch what the airbrush does. See how it lightly need to increase the size a little bit. So see how it kind of makes the shadow like an airbrush. So I can come in here and these crevices and kind of go around and darken some of these areas that should be darker. Same thing with this lower part of the beard. I'm going to add a little bit more definition in there, making that part darker. Just doing that whole bottom section down here. And I'm just adding in another layer of shadow with it. And since it goes on smooth, it doesn't completely overtake what you're painting. It's like especially on this ridge line here, up underneath the brow, I really want to take that darker. When I have it, and that'll just help bring it out a little bit more. Okay, do a little bit of the hair on this bottom side here. Okay, let's hit up this bottom over here, darken that out. And you can do the same with your highlight. Now I'm not going to do too much, but you can come in here and you can blow out some areas that you want to be a little bit on the lighter side of things. And again, it'll make it nice and smooth instead of hard and rough. Okay? So I can turn off my symmetry tool. I can hold Command or Control D, just depends what you're on, and that'll deselect my image. And that is the basics of drawing and shading a portrait that you can use. If you want to take this back some, right, so I can take down my line work a little bit and drop the opacity just so that there's enough there to look painterly. Okay, that's up to you, completely up to you. Alright, so I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something today, and we'll get more advanced with it as we go. Other than that, that's going to do it for today. Remember to do the homework, practice on some other portraits, and you can share your work with me on Twitter. And you can at WickedArt5, and you can also subscribe and like if you like what you're seeing. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, keep sketching. Bye.